Welcome to Teenage Normal, Beyond the Pages.
It's really great to be here.
Yeah, we're super excited. And if you're joining us for the first time, you should know that the Teenage program is this platform where we feature and discuss published research articles. But we do it in a format that's, accessible, engaging, and actually relevant to your daily life.
Right, because we really want to take all that brilliant work being done in academia and bring it directly to you.
Exactly. Bridging that gap between scholarly research and, well, everyday cultural understanding.
Because knowledge is definitely most valuable when it's actively used to understand the world around us, not just, sitting quietly on a dusty library shelf.
So true. And today we are doing a deep dive into a fantastic new paper. It's by Lester Kyle E. Paes, who is an assistant professor over at Cebu Normal University.
Mm-hmm.
And it just came out in the PRISMA, Gender and Education e-Journal. Specifically, that's Volume 2, Issue 1 of their 2025 publications.
Yeah, it's a really brilliant study. PRISMA is just a great venue for this kind of critical work.
It really is. Oh, and the paper is a qualitative discourse analysis, and it's titled Filipinoism, Feminism, and Dalagang Bukid.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to use this famous 1919 Philippine play, the foundational text, Dalagang Bukid, as a sort of time capsule.
A very revealing time capsule, yeah.
Definitely. We're going to examine how Filipino culture, the pretty brutal divide between the rich and the poor, and the specific roles of women have evolved.
Or, as the paper shows, how they've stubbornly persisted over the last century.
Exactly. But to really grasp why this matters, we kind of have to look at the Philippine literary and theatrical tradition, right?
Yeah, we do, because it's this incredibly rich tapestry. It's woven from, Spanish, American, indigenous, and Asian influences all mixing together.
Wow.
And the specific art form that we're dissecting today, the one the researcher focused on, is the zarzuela.
Which, just to clarify for everyone, that isn't just a basic musical, right?
Oh, no, far from it. I mean, the zarzuela was originally introduced during the Spanish colonial period, but Filipinos adapted it into their entirely own unique medium.
Like they made it their own.
Totally. It mixes music, drama, and some really pointed social commentary. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it actually became a highly effective tool for Filipino nationalism.
So it wasn't just entertainment.
Not at all. It was literally how society talked to itself about its most pressing issues.
That's fascinating. But, the author points out a persistent problem that makes studying this century-old play so critical for us right now.
Right, the issue of cultural misrepresentation.
Yeah, exactly, in modern media.
The study outlines this core problem where when media inaccurately represents marginalized groups, it just mechanically reinforces these harmful stereotypes and discriminatory narratives.
Yeah.
And the author actually cites contemporary examples to prove this. He points to modern Filipino dramas like My Husband's Lover, Amaya, and Bagani.
Right. I remember the controversies around some of those.
Exactly. These shows have all faced various criticisms for, their portrayals of LGBTQ plus individuals, or inaccurate historical depictions, or even questionable casting choices.
So it's not just a thing of the past.
No, they demonstrate that media representation isn't just some historical issue, it's an ongoing, active challenge today.
Which brings us right to the text itself, Dalagang Bukid, which translates to Country Maiden.
Right.
It was written by Hermogenes Ilagan in 1919, and it is so culturally monumental that it was adapted into the very first Filipino-produced film by Jose Nepomuceno.
It's a huge deal.
It really is. And the objective of Paes' study is to analyze how this iconic 1919 text portrays social class and gender roles, and then actively compare those portrayals to our modern contemporary realities.
Because historical depictions, they set the baseline. They create the initial mold for how a culture views itself,
Yeah, I tend to think of it as like a cultural hangover.
A cultural hangover. I like that.
Yeah, but this makes me wonder, and I kind of want to push back on this premise just a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
If theatrical forms have the power to shape collective perception, as the author states, how much of our modern cultural identity is actually just an echo of early 20th century entertainment?
Oh, that's a great question.
Like, are we just walking around reciting scripts that were written for a stage 100 years ago?
That is precisely the tension this research explores. Like,
Yeah.
Are we evolving, or are we just doing a modern remix of an old play?
Right.
And to figure that out, the researcher used a qualitative discourse analysis.
Okay, and for anyone listening who hasn't, spent time in a sociology department, what exactly does that mean?
Good point. Basically, discourse analysis means the researcher wasn't just reading the dialogue on the page.
You weren't just reading the script.
Right. They were analyzing how things were said. They looked at body language, wardrobe choices, the physical space between characters.
Wow.
Yeah, they were looking at the underlying social power dynamics that were operating in every single frame.
And the data collection here is just fascinating because, I mean, the play is over a century old. You can't exactly go see it on weekend.
Yeah, definitely not.
So the primary source data was actually a complete video performance of the Zarzuela that was posted on a YouTube channel.
Yeah, the channel is called Imwald.
Right, Imwald.
Yeah.
And they posted it back in August 2020. It's such a great example of how digital archives are directly enabling modern academic research.
It's phenomenal access. I mean, without it, this specific visual analysis wouldn't be possible.
Exactly.
And to analyze this performance, the researcher applied two specific theoretical frameworks: cultural Marxism and feminist theory.
Okay, sounds heavy.
It does, but instead of getting bogged down in textbook definitions, let's just look at how they function here.
Perfect.
In this context, the Marxist lens examines the friction between the wealthy capitalist class and the working class. It exposes how the dominant group manipulates cultural norms just to maintain their wealth.
Right. And then the feminist theory lens looks at the patriarchal structures, essentially examining how women are forced to navigate a society whose rules were written entirely by men.
Exactly.
It's like the researchers using two different specialized pairs of 3D glasses to view the exact same video.
Oh, that's a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah. One pair of glasses exposes the invisible architecture of money and class dominance. Then you put on the other pair, and it exposes the invisible architecture of gender constraints.
And when you apply those filters to the plot of Dalagang Bukid, the cultural mechanics become incredibly obvious.
So let's look at that plot.
Yeah, set the scene for us.
Okay, so our protagonist is Angelita. She's a beautiful, modest flower vendor from the province. And she is deeply in love with Cipriano. And Cipriano is this poor but incredibly hardworking law student. But naturally, there's a massive conflict.
Of course there is.
Angelita's parents have accumulated a mountain of debt. And to erase it, they try to arrange her marriage to Don Silvestre, who is a very wealthy, much older usurer in their town.
What's fascinating here is how efficiently this dramatic structure relies on and manipulates Filipino cultural traits.
Oh, absolutely.
The plot is totally driven by the cultural affinity for conflict, drama, and schismus, or, gossip.
We do love a good dramatic narrative.
We do. But the schismus isn't just idle chatter here. In this context, it functions as an informal social regulator.
A social regulator? Like how?
It's a mechanism that enforces societal norms through public scrutiny. The study points out that Filipino culture is deeply characterized by collectivism, family orientation, and deference to authority.
Okay, so you can't just rebel openly.
Exactly. Conflicts aren't usually handled with direct confrontation. They're handled through avoidance, accommodation, or familial compromise.
Wow, and we really see those mechanics at work with Angelita, especially with the concept of utang na loob.
Yes, that profound debt of gratitude to one's parents.
Right, it's the whole reason she seriously considers sacrificing her true love to marry an old man and pay off her parents' debt. But wait, I'm stuck on this idea utang na loob.
Okay, what about it?
Are you saying it's essentially like a form of generational financial hostage-taking disguised as gratitude? Because that sounds incredibly restrictive.
That is a very sharp way to frame it, honestly. Historically, in pre-industrial or heavily agrarian societies, family loyalty and mutual obligation were literal survival mechanisms.
Because there was no government help.
Exactly. There was no social safety net other than your family. But over time, that survival mechanism hardened into a rigid cultural expectation.
So it became a trap.
Pretty much.
Right.
So when you pair utang na loob with hiya,
Hiya being the deeply ingrained sense of shame and pride.
right, the need to uphold familial honor, it becomes a very powerful psychological tool. Angelita isn't just choosing between two men.
She's choosing between her personal happiness and the total social destruction of her family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That makes the stakes so much higher.
It really does. And then there's Cipriano, the law student. There's a detail about his character that really stands out.
Oh, the closing detail?
Yeah. He wears traditional Filipino clothes, but he is studying law, which is a legal system heavily influenced and introduced by the Americans during their colonial rule.
Right, the American influence was huge.
Does Cipriano represent a sort of dual consciousness for Filipinos during that era?
Yeah.
Like they were caught in the crossfire between indigenous tradition and colonial modernity.
Absolutely. The American colonial period created an intense dual consciousness.
Yeah.
The Filipino working class was trying to assert a distinct national identity while simultaneously trying to figure out how to survive in this rapidly modernizing American-influenced system.
So he physically embodies that friction.
He really does.
So we see the cultural friction. But let's look at the class friction, because the visual differences the study points out are just stark.
The wardrobe analysis is amazing.
Right. The high-class characters, like Don Silvestre, are literally draped in wealth. The men are wearing layered suits and ties. The women are in vibrant dresses with expensive accessories.
Yeah, they are weaponizing their wardrobe to signal economic dominance.
Meanwhile, the lower-class characters are dressed in modest, long-sleeved Filipiniana attire. The puffy sleeves, the long skirts. I mean, it's highly functional, but it also reflects deep Catholic values of humility and simplicity.
But the discourse analysis gets really compelling when it moves beyond the wardrobe.
Oh.
Yeah, when it analyzes behavior and language. The wealthy characters are portrayed as confident, but wildly extravagant and corrupt.
Oh, they're super corrupt.
Highly secretive, too. They engage in paramour relationships, like the character Paco, who is involved with a married woman.
Right.
Or Captain John, who uses his status to pursue a much younger Filipina. They continuously engage in unethical behavior just to protect their class distinction.
And the way they speak reinforces that hierarchy too, doesn't it?
Yes, very much so. The high-class characters use highly sophisticated, poetic language. They deploy complex vocabulary and all these literary devices.
But they aren't doing it just to sound smart, are they?
No, not at all.
It's like a velvet rope at an exclusive club. It looks beautiful, but its only real functional purpose is to keep people out.
That's exactly how it functions. It's a linguistic barrier. It's meant to assert dominance and deliberately exclude the uneducated working class.
Wow. But the lower class characters, like Angelita and Cipriano, they're depicted as brave, goal-driven, and endlessly resilient.
They really are the heroes in that sense.
They are. And here is a detail from the methodology that completely blew my mind.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about.
The researcher noted that the lower-class characters consistently speak louder throughout the performance.
It's such a brilliant observation of physical dynamics.
It really is. Because why do they speak louder? It's a literal physical manifestation of their lack of institutional power. When you're wealthy, you can whisper, because you operate with the assumption that the room will naturally quiet down for you.
Right, you expect people to listen.
Exactly. The poor don't have that privilege. They don't have the wealth or the status to command a room. So they physically have to raise their vocal volume just to be heard over the sophisticated whispers of the elite.
It's a perfect encapsulation of the Marxist critique present in the play.
Yeah.
The bourgeoisie extract value while maintaining control through wealth, access, and deception. During this specific historical period, the high class often directly benefited from American colonial policies.
Like they got access to education abroad.
Exactly, while the lower classes remained systematically marginalized, so yeah, they had to be loud because no one was listening to them.
I love the analogy of the high-class characters being like this beautifully frosted cake that's totally rotting on the inside.
Oh, that's a great visual.
Right, while the lower-class characters are like plain bread. It's not flashy, but it's what actually sustains the society.
That's spot on. But, that velvet rope wasn't just woven from money and class, it was also woven from gender.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, because this completely changes how we look at a character like Angelita. When the researcher applies the feminist lens, contrasting the women of 1919 with the modern Filipina, the shift is staggering.
Because the women in 1919 were entirely bound by the patriarchal architecture of the early 20th century. Right?
Completely. Their options were severely limited.
Look, Angelita is devoted and hardworking, but her resilience is ultimately completely reliant on a man's love.
Right.
And then you have Jacoba, who prefers material comfort over romance. You have Petra, whose entire character motivation is focused on marrying a rich man.
Yep.
And Meiling, who is portrayed basically as an exploiter of wealth, acting as a mistress. Their entire agency is defined by their proximity to men and men's money.
Now hold those 1919 characters in your mind for a second.
Okay, about them.
And compare them to the 2023 contemporary data the researcher brings in.
Oh, it's night and day.
It really is. The modern Filipina is highly independent, goal-driven, and empowered. She isn't relying on a man's wealth. She is the architect of her own success.
Yeah, the study highlights some incredible modern examples.
It does. It talks about female journalists who are surviving and thriving in a heavily male-dominated media world, They're spearheading coverage on highly sensitive, critical topics like reproductive health.
It also points to absolute powerhouses, like Olympic weightlifting champion Hidilyn Diaz.
Incredible athlete.
And it mentions phenomenal leaders, like the 14th Vice President of the Philippines, Leni Robredo. And it cites Broadway legends like Lea Salonga.
Right.
These are women who haven't just ignored the 1919 rulebook, they've completely shredded it.
They absolutely have. They demonstrate how Filipino women's identities have drastically matured in terms of power, autonomy, and independence.
But there is a catch, right?
Yeah, there is. The study is very thorough, and it tackles a highly nuanced finding that we really need to discuss.
The survey data.
Exactly. It references modern survey data indicating that a significant number of Filipino women still prioritize financial security or marrying an affluent partner over physical attractiveness or pure romantic love.
See, that feels like a tricky needle to thread. How does the study contextualize that without accidentally falling back into those 1919 stereotypes of women just, marrying for money?
By analyzing the mechanisms behind that choice through cultural theory.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The researcher explains that this mindset isn't about vanity. It stems from deeply ingrained cultural instructions. For generations, Filipino women have been systematically taught to prioritize the welfare and stability of their extended families before chasing their individual desires.
Wow, so it's utang de lube all over again.
Exactly. When you combine that intense cultural pressure with the very real, very brutal desire to escape systemic poverty, prioritizing a partner who offers financial security isn't superficial.
Right.
It is a highly pragmatic survival strategy.
It's resource management in a system that historically denied them resources.
That's beautifully put, exactly. But it raises a crucial analytical question that the study asks. Does this preference, while entirely practical for the individual, inadvertently perpetuate broader gender disparities?
Meaning, does it keep them trapped?
Right. Does it unintentionally keep women locked in a societal cycle where they rely on men for financial validation rather than structurally achieving it independently?
Which honestly makes me rethink those 1919 characters entirely.
How so?
Well, are the ambitious women of Dalagang Bukid, like Jacobo or Petra, actually the precursors to modern independent women?
Oh, that's interesting.
Were they just ambitious individuals operating within an extremely rigid patriarchal straitjacket? Like, if Jacoba had access to a modern university education and a corporate career path, would she have been a ruthless CEO instead of seeking comfort through a wealthy husband?
That is a profound way to look at it. They were exercising agency, but the only legal and social capital society allowed them to leverage was marriage.
Right.
The findings of this discourse analysis prove that societal expectations and structural power dynamics dictate exactly how marginalized groups are allowed to perform their roles. Dalagang Bukid wasn't exaggerating. It accurately represented the cultural reality and the severely limited options available to women in 1919.
So we've unpacked the history, the class struggles, and the gender dynamics. What does this all mean for us today, right now?
It underscores how deeply colonial and patriarchal systems were embedded in the Philippine cultural software.
The software, yeah.
We inherited a societal script that mechanically associates women with sacrifice, modesty, and dependency, while universally associating men with power, money, and assertiveness.
And even though society has vastly evolved, I mean, we literally have Hidilyn Diaz lifting gold medals and women running major newsrooms.
Yes.
Those old invisible scripts still linger in our media, which brings us right back to the core problem the author identified at the very beginning: misrepresentation.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, modern media creators have a profound responsibility because they are the ones writing the new cultural scripts.
They hold the pen now.
They do. Media must actively champion diversity and inclusion. It needs to accurately portray the modern, empowered, multifaceted Filipina, rather than lazily defaulting to 100-year-old tropes that belong in her 1919 Zarzuela.
It's about recognizing that the software needs an update.
Definitely.
To summarize the massive contribution of this study, it really serves as a powerful mirror for Filipino culture. It proves the incredible, enduring adaptability of the Filipino spirit over the last century.
It really does.
But more importantly, it carefully documents the triumphant evolution of the Filipina. From a dependent, modest character whose only avenue for social mobility was through marriage, to a fiercely independent architect of her own success.
It's a remarkable societal journey. And as a reflective closing thought, I think it's crucial to remember that analyzing a historical work like Dalagang Bukid isn't just an academic exercise in preserving the past.
No, not at all.
It's about actively measuring our progress. It's about identifying those invisible cultural scripts we are still unlearning today so we can finally start writing completely new ones.
Beautifully said. And it leaves me with one final question for you, the listener, to mull over as you go about your day.
Let's hear it.
If a researcher 100 years from now performs a discourse analysis on the most popular TV dramas of our current decade, what outdated, restrictive stereotypes will they assume were our unshakable cultural truths?
Oh, man. A slightly terrifying but absolutely necessary thought.
Truly. We highly encourage you to read the full, fascinating article by Lester Kyle E. Paes. You can find Filipinoism, Feminism, and Dalagang Bukid via the PRISMA Journal online, or by simply scanning the QR code provided in our show notes.
It is absolutely well worth your time.
Thank you for joining us for this exploration. We invite you to continue your engagement with academic research and keep questioning the narratives around you with us here on Teen Normal. Beyond the pages,